Chant Om 3 times. Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Gurave Sarvalokanam Bhishaje Bhavaroginam Nidhaye Sarvavidyanam Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Namah Pranavarthaya Shuddha Gnanaikamurtaye Nirmalaya Prashantaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Hari Om. Om Bhadram Karne Vishrunuyaama Devaha Bhadram Pashyemakshabhiryajatraha Sthirairangaihi Tishtuvagam Sastanubihi Yashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Swasti na Indro Vruddhashravaha Swasti nah Pusha Vishvavedaha Swasti nastarksho Arishtanemihi Swasti no Bruhaspatir Dadhatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Jai Gurudev. Happy Navaratri to everyone. This is the time to rest every aspect, your senses, your stomach, your activity, and just settle down. So last time we looked at some basic definitions, and one of them was samsara. Living in the realm of Maya is samsara. When something which is not real appears very real and you find it very difficult to push it aside as unreal, that means you are under the influence of Maya. Very similar to your dream. Only when you wake up you realize it is unreal, but when you are moving through the dream, it's impossible for you to ignore the dream. But once you wake up, you say, oh, it was all in my mind, nothing was outside anyway. Being attached to something is samsara. Being attached to nothing is nirvana. Something is samsara. And when you are in samsara, you experience bondage, and this bondage leads to suffering. Now, suffering we have already spoken about previously, and Buddha has a very nice way of putting suffering in life. He says life is suffering, but there are two aspects to suffering. One is the real aspect, one is the unreal aspect. The real aspect is like the one arrow coming and hitting you unexpectedly. And the unreal aspect is the second arrow coming and hitting you before you could recover from the first one, and the second arrow being more sharper, more poisonous and more hot. And the second arrow is so painful that you forget that you are ever hit by the first arrow. The desire of every being is to be happy. And not just to be happy, to be always happy. However, it does not know where to seek this joy. So, the being looks around and sees that everybody is trying to seek the joy in the outside world, so you also start looking there. When you were born, you were joyous with yourself. You didn't need anything. If your basic needs were met, that was good enough for you. You found your own source of happiness. But as you grow up, then you see that this person is seeking joy there, and then you go behind that. So you go behind pleasures, behind relationships, behind fame, money, luxury, holidays, shopping, all these things. That's fine. They all give you joy to some extent. But one thing we should become very clear about the joy in the material world is that it has a beginning, it has a peak, and it has an end. The joy is like a wave. It rises and falls. When you are aware of this fact, when you are in knowledge, you accept this and move on. In fact, when you are very well established in this, every time you crave for something, you tell yourself, I am craving for this, I will no doubt get a joy from this, but this joy will not last for long. So you go with a plan to how to manage your expectations. You know how to manage. On the other hand, if you don't know this point, or if you are not established in this point, then you try to hold on to something which is slipping away from you. That is ending. And when you can't hold on to it, and when it is still moving away, then you feel disappointed, frustrated, angry, jealous. Or you misunderstand in that change, maybe I will find the permanent joy which I am seeking, without realizing that I am seeking permanent joy from an impermanent source. You keep on changing, and that is where you become frustrated. You say, oh, how much effort I am putting, and still I am getting nowhere. This is samsara. This is the second arrow. Living in ignorance and not realizing that this is the nature of the world. The only place where you can find solace is within my own self. And this we have experienced. We will come to this as well. This is not something theoretical. This you know by experience. So, the first aspect of samsara is what? Bondage leading to suffering. The second aspect of samsara is wherever you experience bondage, there is also duality. Me and the world, me and something else, me and somebody. Now, just remember from your recent memory anything that bothered you, any of your botherations or worries. Just bring it to your memory when you are upset with something and see whether it was one or two at that point. Every time you are upset with something or about something, there is always two there. some person, some event, some circumstance which is not fitting well with you. Yes or no? Yeah. Now, this is very, very obvious in the waking state. The duality is so strongly established and conditioned in the wakeful state. See, right now we are all here. Do we see this whole crowd as just one consciousness? We still see everybody as separate. This is me, this is you, this is that person, this is this person. Maybe theoretically you may hear and say, yes, yes, we are all made up of the same consciousness. But somewhere more concretely established in you is that this is all separate. Yeah. So, this feeling of duality or separation is very strongly established in the wakeful state. Also in the dream state, there is also duality in the dream state. There is no one. The same thing which is you are experiencing in the awake state, the same thing you will experience in the dream also. There is no difference at all. Then you come to the deep sleep state, where suddenly duality disappears. When the duality disappears, the suffering also disappears. Have you noticed? There is no suffering in deep sleep. You might have an interview tomorrow, you might lose your job tomorrow, or there might be some big operation tomorrow, whatever it is. The moment you are in deep sleep, that is it. None of it exists. So, what does it say? That your world exists in your mind. Your mind is the cause of duality, and your mind is the one which runs your wakeful state and your dream state. When you are able to put this mind aside, then your world collapses and the suffering drops. Is this making sense? Are you getting this? This is amazing if you get this. Duality means the experiencer and the experience. There is a cause and an effect. As long as this separation of cause and effect is there, the experiencer and the experience is there, you will not be free. But the moment the experiencer and the experience merge, they become one from two, then the suffering goes off, which is what happens in deep sleep. In deep sleep, there is neither experiencer nor experience. But in the fourth state, in the meditative state, there is a clarity between what is real, what is unreal. You know you are the person standing in front of the mirror, and what is in the mirror is just a reflection. You are very aware of this. But in the wakeful and the dream state, you have forgotten the person standing in front of the mirror, but you are holding on to the reflection as real. Are you with me? Yeah. So, from our experience, we know that the real joy is when the duality ceases. And that is why they say your nature is Satchidananda, pure consciousness and bliss. And what is the biggest obstacle for you experiencing this bliss is your mind. And the whole essence of meditation is just to tame your mind, just to allow it to settle down, not give it much importance. And this is the beauty of the mind, is you do not have to suppress the mind. In fact, if you suppress it, it becomes more powerful, because to suppress you need to give attention. The only thing you need to do is just ignore it. This is the trick with the mind. Do not attend to it, do not support it, do not suppress it, just ignore it. Just see, oh, this is just mind stuff, and then it settles down. So, samsara leads to suffering, and the suffering is a product of duality, and the duality is very obvious in the wakeful and the dream state, whereas it disappears in the deep sleep state, and there is clarity in the meditative or the fourth state. Okay. Now, we will look at a few more basic things. We have discussed this before, but again for those who have not been in the previous discussions, we will look into it. So, we have got a still ocean, a vast infinite ocean which is very still, and in this ocean a small ripple arises. This ripple slowly gains momentum, then becomes a wave. The wave rises, stays up for a while, and then comes and falls down, and then another wave arises. And all the waves originate from this ripple. If the ripple wasn't there, the wave wouldn't have arisen in the still ocean. This still ocean is the unmanifested consciousness or Brahman. The ripple is the causal body or Purusha. The difference between the still ocean and the ocean with a little ripple is that one is contented, one is slightly agitated, that is all. One is slightly unstable, one is fully stable. This agitation, you can call it a desire or an intention, and when that gains strength, it creates a wave, and that wave is Prakriti, which appears and disappears, comes out of Brahman and dissolves into Brahman, comes out of the causal body and enters into the causal body. That is why the Brahman is called Shuddha Sattva, it is pure consciousness, and the Purusha is called Malina Sattva, the consciousness with a little bit of impurity in it. Just like you need a little bit of impurity to be added to gold to make it strong enough to make an ornament. So, to manifest a creation, to convert the unmanifested consciousness into a manifested consciousness, you need some structural support. The structural support is the impurity that is seen in the causal body. And from this Malina Sattva, what comes out are the 5 elements. The 5 elements are the source of manifested consciousness or matter. The moment matter comes into existence, it automatically becomes bound by the 3 gunas, which are Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. Are you all here? Very good. The water and the earth element, they combine and form Tamas. The fire and the air combine to form Rajas, and the space becomes the Sattvic element. The most abundant element is the space. From the space, air, from air, fire, from fire, water, from water, earth manifests. We already told the Purusha is the causal body or Karana Sharira, from where the gross and the subtle bodies come. The gross body comes from the tamasic aspect of the 5 elements. So, the gross body is inert. Tamas means inertia. It has no function of its own, it only takes the function whatever is given to it. So, this body by itself has got no power, no say. The subtle body runs this gross body. This is just a structure, just like as we were saying, this is just a vessel to hold the pudding or the curry. The vessel has nothing, it is only holding it. Because it has the curry in it, you say curry pot. It is just a pot, by itself it has no facility or utility. So, this gross body is inert, and inertia is the quality of tamas. The subtle body is created from the Rajasic and the Sattvic components. Rajas is also called as Kriya Shakti, that energy of dynamism, and from there you get the dynamic components, which are the 5 karmendriyas and the 5 pranas. What are the 5 karmendriyas? Speech, with which you communicate, hands with which you grasp, feet with which you move, genitals with which you get pleasure, and anus with which you evacuate. These are the organs of action. And then we have 5 pranas: prana, apana, samana, vyana and udana, which run this system. And then the sattvic component, what you get is the 5 gnanendriyas, the special senses, and the 4 antahkaranas: mind, memory, intellect and ego. So, the most subtle and the most finest aspects come from the sattvic component. And now we are in Navaratri. It is said that the universe was created during these 9 days. Navaratri is the anniversary of creation. In the first 3 days which we are in now, the tamasic components were created. The next 3 days, the rajasic components, the final 3 days, the sattvic components were created, and they were all brought together. See, the prana is finally instilled. When you do a prana pratishtha in an idol in a temple, you first make the gross bit, isn't it? You first make the tamasic bit, the idol. Then you start instilling prana into it, and finally you make it alive with your mantras, which is the space element, the sattvic element. Similarly, the creation. First the structure, then a bit of energy, then life comes through. So, this is the causal body, subtle body and the gross body, sthula, sukshma and karana sharira. The karana sharira also called as purusha. And the source of all these 3 bodies is the Brahman, which is the pure consciousness. It is like, during Pongal and all, what do? You make these sugar candies. You take a sugar syrup and then pour it into different molds, isn't it? And once the mold sets in, there is various candy shape you get, a peacock, a chariot, a coconut tree, which you share it with people. Yeah, you remember this? Yeah, but they are all in essence what? Just sugar syrup, isn't it? The sugar syrup poured into different molds gives an appearance of different shapes and forms, but essentially it is just the syrup. In the same way, everything is just originating from the Brahman, but appears different. It is just a projection of the Brahman. Yeah. So, these are the few things we need to be aware of. What? Brahman, Purusha, Prakriti, gross body, subtle body and the causal body, and the components of the 5 elements and the 3 gunas. Now, just like there is a gross body, subtle body and the causal body, there is a gross universe, the subtle universe and the causal universe. The causal body and causal universe are the same, it is Purusha. But at an individual level, you call it a individual self, at the universal, you call it a universal self. Okay. So, now we will look into a few shlokas. So, last time we saw that everything is Brahman and everything is Om as well. So, we saw that everything is Om. Om is the beginning and the end, that which includes the past, present and future, and if there is anything beyond the past, present and future, that is also in Om. And then they started describing the states of our existence, of consciousness. He said, I am Atma Brahman. This self itself is Brahman, but this Brahman manifests itself in 4 ways. It has 4 aspects. And the first aspect was the wakeful state, and it told us that when the pure consciousness starts moving outwards, experiencing the world outside, that is a wakeful state. And this is dependent on the 7 angas, saptangas. What are the saptangas? 7 things which we see when we are awake: heaven, sun and moon, air, fire, sky, ocean and earth. which is head, eyes, mouth, nose, trunk, your pelvic region and your feet. These are the 7 aspects of the universal self and represented in the individual self, and 19 faces. The 19 faces are the 19 components which we have already discussed. So, when these 19 faces plus the 5 gross elements come together, they experience the saptanga, the 7 aspects of the gross world, and that is called as the wakeful state. And then now we will see what is the dream state. Swapnasthano antahprajnah saptangah ekonavimshati mukah pravivikta bhuk taijaso dvitiya padah. If you compare the shloka before this, which explains the Jagrita Avastha, and this, there is hardly any difference. There are only 1 or 2 words which are changed. There it says Jagrita Sthana, here it says Swapna Sthana. There it says Bahish Prajna, here it says Antah Prajna. The consciousness which was going out, now when it starts going inwards, when it reverses its direction and experiences the same thing which you experience in the wakeful state, Saptanga Ekona Vimshati Mukaha, the 7 components of the universe as well as the 19 faces of the self, of the individual. Pravivikta bhuk, Pravivikta means subtle or delicate. So, it feeds on the subtle body. The wakeful state was feeding on the gross body, whereas the dream state feeds on the subtle body. Taijaso dvitiya padaha, it is called as Taijas. The name for the dreaming individual is called Taijas, and this is the second aspect of the expression of the Brahman. The first it expresses in the wakeful state, now it is expressing as the dream state. So, here what the Upanishad is telling is, there is literally no difference between the wakeful state and the dream state. You know how to ignore the dream state. When do you do that? When you wake up. In the same way, when the knowledge wakens up in you, even the wakeful state, you will brush it aside as if it is a dream, because it is a dream. It is not in any way different to the dream state. You see the same thing in the wakeful state, in the dream state also, and you experience the same elevation and depression, same fear, same desire, same worries, everything is there. In fact, in the dream you experience it even more intensely. At least in the wakeful state you have this ability to get distracted, but in the dream, do you see, there is no way you can escape. There is no distraction, you have to go through it. You have to sweat it out, you have to wake up with your heart pounding. You cannot escape. Do you see this? In the wakeful state, your senses are bombarded with so many impulses from the external world. Most of them may be irrelevant, some of them may have made a deep impression. It does not matter how long you are exposed to them, but some make very deep impression. Say for example, you are afraid of cockroach. You just need to see a cockroach in the television and an advertisement, that is good enough. It enters straight into your memory. And when you sleep, your mind picks the deep impression, throws it in you. You re-see. How many of you had this experience? Yeah, you watch some horror movie for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or you watch an accident or hear some bad news, and that gets exaggerated in your dream. With all the masala, it comes in the dream. You just saw it for a few seconds, but in your dream it becomes such a big movie. Hasn't this happened? Where is this happening? Once again, your mind is picking it up. It is going into the dabba of memory, finding out where it is, then it picks up and throws at you, because it is entertainment. And you think it is very real. And in fact, the only way you are able to escape it is when you wake up. Whether you wake up with sweating or heart pounding or shouting, but you wake up. That is the only way you can escape from the dream. So, dream is subtle, more delicate, but more intense in the wakeful state. But still we know how to ignore the dream. But for somehow we hold on to the wakeful state very strongly. Now this Upanishad is saying they are exactly the same. You deal with both of them in the similar way. Yes, when you are wakeful, when you are awake, you have some transactional aspect of your life which is once again born out of karma, which once again is the realm of the mind playing out. Just like in your dream as well, all that happening is only projected by the mind. When you are awake as well, your entire world, Vishwa, is a projection of your mind. It is not concrete, though it appears. Just like your reflection in the mirror appears very true, very real, but it is not. In a very similar way. So, this is the Swapna. And what is the realm of both wakeful and the dream state? Two things, fear and desire. Fear and desire run your wakeful state as well as your dream state, and that is what you see in your dream as well. Is there anything else you see in your dream? More of 90% of your dreams are about your fears and your desires, isn't it? So, this is the dreamer, the dream state. And the individual dreamer is called Taijasa, and the universal dreamer is called Hiranyagarbha. Some of you might have heard this word, Hiranyagarbha. Hiranyagarbha means the golden egg, which is the source of all creation. So, this is another name for Brahma as well. The wakeful state at the individual level is called Vishwa, and the universal level it is called Vaishwanara. Vaishwanara is another name for Vishnu. So, the wakeful state is represented by Vishnu, the dream state is represented by Brahma. Hiranyagarbha and Vaishwanara. If you read Vishnu Sahasranama, Vaishwanara comes many times. And what is liberation? Liberation is just freedom from fear and desire. Freedom from your dream and your wakeful state is liberation. But you can experience that only when you are awake. That is another irony of it. It is the freedom from the projections of the mind in the wakeful and the dream state is liberation, which you can only experience when you are awake. Now, he speaks about deep sleep. We may think, there is so much happening in the awake state, in the dream state, nothing is happening in the deep sleep. So, there is nothing much, but the Upanishad says this is even more important than the other two states. So, other states were given only one shloka, here for sleep they are given two shlokas. Here it says, Yatra supto na kanchana kamam kamayate na kanchana swapnam pashyati tat sushuptam. Sushuptasthana ekibhutah prajnanaghana evanandamayo hi anandabhuk cheto mukah pragnas tritiya padaha. Yatra supto na kanchana kamam kamayate. That state where no desires are experienced. Na kanchana swapnam pashyati, where no dreams are also seen. That is the sushupta, that is the deep sleep state. Sushupta sthana eki bhutaha. In the deep sleep state, there is no differentiation, everything is condensed, everything is merged into one. The experiencer and the experience both come together and they are covered with a blanket of darkness. There is no consciousness at all, it is unconscious, but it is one. Prajnana Ghana. Prajnana Ghana means a consolidated consciousness. In the wakeful state, the consciousness is moving out, it is flowing, it is dynamic. In the dream state, it is moving in, again dynamic. With the deep sleep, it is adynamic. It is just there, it is still and consolidated. But this is the bija for the other two states. The two other states come out of it. When the deep sleep lightens, you dream. When it lightens even further, you wake up. So, they both arise. The seed of the wakeful and the dream state lies in the deep sleep state. So, though the consciousness is consolidated and one, it is yet the seed of the two other states. Anandamayo hi Anandabhuk. This is a state of bliss. Who does not like sleep? Tell me. We all enjoy sleep. Yeah. If you are too, say for example, you had a long flight, you came back, somebody said, oh, I have made a big 4-course meal for you and there is a bed ready, what will you choose? You don't even bother to eat, even if it is your favorite food, just want to go and sleep, isn't it? But when you are well rested and awake, you choose, I want this, I want that, all those. But when you are so tired, you love sleep. Why? Because that is one another source of joy which is continuously present in your life, where you can drop all worries, all tiredness and then just rest. So, it is called Anandamaya. It is a state which floats in bliss. Anandabhuk, it feeds on bliss. Why? Because it represents the causal body. The Purusha feeds on Brahman, which is bliss. So, your deep sleep state, which is the representation of the causal body, feeds on bliss and is blissful. And Cheto Mukha, it is from its face, from its mouth, the two states come out, the wakeful and the dream state. So, it is the originator of the two other states of awareness, and this is called Prajna. At the individual level, the deep sleep is called Prajna, and at the universal level, it is called Ishvara. And in common terms, Ishvara is another name for Shiva. So, here the Upanishad clearly states where all these gods came to us from, Brahma, Vishnu and Maheshwara. They are nothing but our own states of consciousness. The wakeful state is Vishnu, the dream state is Brahma. See, in dream anything can happen, unlike your wakeful state. So, the Brahma has the freedom to create anything. But in the wakeful state, you need a skill to manage, and Vishnu is the skillful one. And in deep sleep, everything dissolves, and Shiva is the god of dissolution, everything merges into it. That is Ishvara. The world is called Vishwa, isn't it? Shva means yesterday or tomorrow in Sanskrit. Vishwa is that special moment in your life which either connects to yesterday or tomorrow. That is where your mind is all the time, isn't it? Past or future. So, your world is your Vishwa. That is where your mind runs. And the moment you become aware, the world disappears. Yeah. Okay, Jai Gurudev. That's lot of food for thought for the entire week. So meditate well. So Navaratri is a very conducive time to meditate and do sadhana, listen to knowledge. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu ma kaschid dukkhabhat bhavet. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti.